Welcome, namaste, and aloha. Today we meet a Nobel Prize winning physicist who quietly kept a copy of the Upanishads on his desk. His name was Niels Bohr. In 1913, a young Danish physicist proposed a model of the atom that changed the shape of modern science. Until then, everyone had pictured the electron as a tiny planet, spiraling smoothly around the nucleus. But that picture had a fatal flaw. It predicted that atoms should collapse in a fraction of a second, and clearly they do not. Bohr's answer was startling. The electron, he said, does not spiral freely. It lives on discrete quantized orbits, and it jumps from one to the next in sudden whole steps, releasing or absorbing a precise packet of light. Reality at its smallest scale was not smooth. It was granular, it was quantized. For that model, Niels Bohr received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1922 at the age of 37. From his institute in Copenhagen, he became the quiet center of the 20th century's revolution in physics, mentoring Heisenberg, Pauli, and a generation of thinkers who would reshape our picture of reality. But the deeper Bohr looked into the atom, the stranger the picture became. Light behaved as a wave and also as a particle. Electrons appeared here and also there until someone chose to look. Western physics, built on the idea that a thing must be one settled thing, could not hold both truths at once, and Bohr found himself standing in front of a paradox that classical logic simply could not close. In 1927, Bohr answered that paradox with a single radical idea. He called it complementarity. Wave and particle, he said, are not two rival truths. They are two complementary faces of one deeper reality, and which face you see depends on how you look. When he was later given a knighthood, Bohr chose the Taoist yin and yang for his coat of arms and wrote beneath it, in Latin, Contraria sunt complementa, opposites are complementary. And here the story turns, because for thousands of years before Bohr, the sages of the Upanishads had been saying something remarkably close. They called it Advaita, literally, not two. The seer and the seen, the wave and the ocean, the drop and the sea, these are not two separate realities. They are complementary faces of one indivisible whole. The Chandogya Upanishad names it in three words, Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad sings the same truth in another key, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that infinite self, and the Mundaka Upanishad extends it outward, saying that the same Brahman is in the east and the west, above and below, that this entire world is nothing other than that. These are not poetic flourishes. They are precise statements about the structure of reality, that what looks like two from inside the observer is one when the observer and the observed are seen together. What Bohr proved with the electron, the rishis had already sung about the self. Bohr saw it. He read the Vedas, he read the Upanishads, and in a line his colleagues remembered for the rest of the century, he said, I go into the Upanishads to ask questions, not to find equations, not to prove theorems, to ask the questions his laboratory had begun to whisper, questions about wholeness, questions about the observer, questions about a reality too deep for the ordinary word real. Elsewhere he wrote, and this line still stops physicists in their tracks, everything we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real. It is the same puzzle the Upanishads had faced long before him. The world we see is real, and yet at its foundation it dissolves into something the language of separateness cannot hold. Bohr had crossed the same threshold from a different side. The lesson is not that physics needs scripture or that scripture needs physics. The lesson is quieter and older. When our finest instruments looked deep enough into matter, they arrived at the same silence the sages had reached by looking deep enough into the self. Two doorways, one reality, ancient sight, modern science. Next, we meet another Nobel laureate, Brian David Josephson, who took Bohr's questions one step further into the physics of consciousness itself, rooted in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thanks, namaste, and mahalo.